What is up, guys, and welcome back to the Gear4music Synth and Tech channel. My name is Theo, and today I am with Mark from Adam Audio, and we're going to be checking out the brand new iteration of the A series from the Adam Audio monitors. Should we be excited?
Oh, for sure.
Let's check them out. All right then, guys, before we do get into the video, please don't forget to give us a cheeky like and subscribe so you can catch more content in the future. We've got loads of videos coming out with brand new products that we're really excited to show you. Now, Mark, we have in front of us and behind us some of the new speakers from the Adam Audio A range. Now, I'm assuming that these are just like a V2 of the previous ones, or do we have, something completely new here?
So Theo, we have something totally new. Yeah, and I'm very excited to introduce it to you guys. Really, the only component that is from the old range is the tweeter, which is
the famous Adam tweeter.
Yeah, the gold ribbon tweeter, still hand-folded in Berlin. But every other component that we're going to talk about today has been designed from the ground up for this new range. We have the A4V here on my lap, the smallest model in the range that still packs a serious punch. And then we've one of the larger models behind us, the A8H, a three-way model, totally new form factor to the A range. But really, they're packed with new features. DSP-based tuning options being the big feature of the range, which includes the Sonarworks integration, which of course we'll dive into later.
Cool, amazing. I'm really excited to check these out. Let's get deep into these monitors.
Let's do it. So Theo, I think the easiest way to run through the new features of the A series is to maybe give you a little tour, see the sights.
I'd love a tour, yeah. Show me all the sights, all the must-sees. Let's go for it.
Well, yeah, there's a lot to pack in. So I'm going to use the A4V as an example, but the features I'm going to describe are common to every speaker in the range, from the smallest, the A4V, to the larger three-way speakers, the A8H, the A77H. So yeah, there's a commonality across all speakers. And yeah, maybe starting with the front of the A4V here, we can see the bass ports here at the bottom. They're larger when compared to the AX series, and the result is lower distortion, simply, and a better frequency response, especially when compared to the A3X and A5X, which this guy replaces.
Yeah, sure. So, I've used the A3X previously, and definitely getting the bass response that you need is always a bit of a struggle with smaller speakers, and I guess this kind of gives you a little bit more.
Yeah,
right?
It's always going to be a struggle with the smaller cone, but the A4V really maximizes every single square inch of that woofer. And yeah, sounds really good. Even at low listening volumes, you're still getting some really nice bass response. Of course, the bass response of the bigger speakers in the range, like the A8H, is phenomenal. Yeah. Really good. Extending all the way to 31 Hertz, in fact, with the A8H. Yeah, so maybe continuing on from the ports, we see the woofer material itself is a brand new composite. It's multi-layer mineral fibers.
Wow.
So yeah, this is a secret sauce from Adam Audio, from our R&D department. They did really interesting work and research on this material itself. It's layers of these kind of mineral stone fibers that have been baked together for a really nice low distortion, low frequency response, and yeah, just a nice warm bass. It's always, it is what you want. So moving on to the tweeter and waveguide, this represents a significant upgrade when compared to the previous AX series. The waveguide itself is significantly larger and made from a really nice low resonant resin material. The tweeter itself is still the same XART accelerated ribbon tweeter.
Sure. Hand-folded
in Berlin, and yeah, the really nice presence that you'll hear across the A series range. And what's super cool with this, the A series, is both the waveguide and the tweeter module can be rotated in 90-degree steps.
Okay, so what's the benefit of being able to rotate the tweeter?
So we've noticed that lots of our customers are using the speakers in whatever orientation they prefer, be it horizontally, vertically, etc., upside down. Whatever sounds good for you in your space. We wanted to enable our customers to maximize that, to maximize their preferences. So the waveguide, as I mentioned, it's designed to help disperse sound with control consistency. And if you're using it in its unintended orientation, perhaps the consistency isn't as good as it could be.
Sure.
However, with the tweeter and waveguide rotated to suit your listening position, or your orientation, I should say, yeah, you're going to benefit from the best sound that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's always great when a manufacturer listens to the customers, and then with the new iteration, they create something different. And I think obviously that's what you've done here. And that's really great for everybody that's looking to get a new set of monitors with Adam in the future.
Cool, yeah, thanks. Yeah, we're already seeing lots of customers out there using them in every orientation imaginable. And the feedback has been really good. It's sounding good out there, which is obviously very important to us.
That's great. So we've covered everything on the front of the monitors.
Yep.
So should we move on to the back?
Let's do it.
So looking at the back of these monitors, I do see there's a lot more on here than there was in previous iterations of the Adam speakers. Looks like we've got some EQ, obviously we've got the volume knob. Would you mind just going over this and telling us what's new here?
Yeah, with pleasure. So you're really starting to see the difference now between the new A series and anything Adam have had in the past, particularly the AX or the T series. It's a significant upgrade. There's a wealth of calibration and EQ options. So here we have our room adaptation settings, and the idea here is that straight out of the box you can quickly EQ your speakers to compensate for typical problems that arise from speaker placement. So what we've noticed is so many Adam Audio customers are using their speakers at home, bedrooms, smaller project spaces, and sometimes space is a big issue. Sometimes you have to place your speakers right against the wall where maybe you don't want to place them, but you don't have much of a choice. So quickly, with using these settings, you can quickly adjust for or compensate for these typical speaker placement issues. So from room adaptation, we can take a look at the voicings next. The voicings are basically the signature tunings of the A series speakers. So every loudspeaker on the market has a signature tuning or a factory tuning. With the A series, you have two selectable options. You have Pure and UNR, and you have a third fully customizable option that comes with the A-Control software that we've already mentioned, and we'll take a look at later. But the default voicings are really interesting and will be the choice for a lot of customers. So Pure is a totally flat option for mixing, mastering, critical listening. And yeah, it can be further calibrated using the room adaptation settings that we described earlier. And then UNR, or Uniform Natural Response, is the Adam Audio signature sound. So the exact same sound profile that you would have found in the AX series, and even in some of the older models as well. It's part of Adam Audio's heritage and history, and we absolutely had to include it in the new A series too. So yeah, we also have a volume knob, which is notched at the central 0 dB level. And then we have our input options here, XLR and RCA.
Wait a minute, Mark, there's actually one connection here that you haven't mentioned, and that's this Ethernet connection. Now, what is that for?
Well, the Ethernet connection is how the loudspeaker communicates with A-Control. So it's how we transfer data to the loudspeaker, calibration profiles, and it's also how we remotely and in real time control the backplate features that we described already. So we can, from the listening sweet spot, we can hear the changes that we're making in real time. So I suggest we plug in and take a look.
What an amazing segue. It's almost like it was planned. Let's check it out. Right then, Mark, so here we are sat at the desk. We have A-Control set up, and we have the A8H monitors with Ethernet cables and lights going on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this setup?
Yeah, sure thing. Maybe first we can start off by looking at how the speakers are connected. Sure. So yeah, obviously it's an Ethernet input on the speaker itself, and to connect it to your PC or Mac, there's a couple of different options. I'm using two dongles here to connect the speakers at the same time. You can also connect your speakers directly to your Wi-Fi router. And then as long as your laptop is connected to the same Wi-Fi network, you can communicate with the speakers then at that stage, which is pretty cool. It just reduces, one less cable is always good in a studio. So it's nice to have a couple of different options. For larger setups, 8, 12, 16 speakers, you can use a standard network switch, and also the speakers will then be picked up on your network section here of A-Control. So yeah, that's basically what's happened here. We've connected two speakers, the A8Hs, and they're now available for selection in our network area. They're both currently identified by their serial number, but of course that's generally, you're maybe not going to know your loudspeaker serial number off the top of your head. Sure. Or maybe you do, I don't know. Maybe they're your lotto numbers, who knows. But yeah, to identify your speakers, we use the blink icon here. Once you click on it, you will see the LED flash there. Yeah. So you know which is which. So, that is our left speaker that we have identified. So let us go ahead and rename it to the A8H, and Will we go L for left? Or if you have another suggestion?
L is fine.
L is okay.
I think that's the universal sign.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we've identified our left speaker here and renamed it. And yeah, let's go ahead and do the same for our right speaker. Great, so now we have our left and right identified within the network area, and we can go ahead and add them to our setup. So we just use these arrows to pop them in here. Confusingly, I have accidentally put the left where the right should be, and so, but you can simply just drag and drop to swap them around.
Yeah, I mean, that shows how easy it is to use, right? Just drag and drop into the space wherever you need it.
Exactly. So the reason, you know, why they identify the network area first and not go straight into the setup area is because, you know, we're aware that people are using these systems. Not everyone's using a stereo pair. People are using all sorts of multi-channel applications. So once they're in the network area, you can then add them to your setup area, and then you can go ahead and save that setup. So yeah, let's just go ahead and do that. So I've already named it Gear4music because that's where we're here today. And yeah, now that's saved. I can easily recall that stereo pair setup at any stage. Now, if I had additional speakers in my system, you know, a 5.1 system or something, we could easily go ahead and call every speaker in the system then and begin working with that.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, so if you're sharing a space or sharing a studio, you can easily just call your setup and get working right away. It is, I like to think, pretty straightforward, easy to use. It doesn't take too long to get familiar with it. But yeah, now with our speakers in our setup area, we can begin to equalize them or, you know, make some changes. So with A-Control connected here, the default equalization mode is adaptation. And this is a direct reflection of the backplate of the monitor, as we see it here, the 4 bands of EQ. And yeah, as you can see, the changes here are happening in real time as I make these adjustments.
Okay, wow.
Which is cool.
So what's the benefit there? I mean, if you have the buttons on the back, why would you need to be able to control it via software?
Okay, so while you're sitting in your listening sweet spot, you're going to have the best understanding of your speaker and of their response, and this gives you the option to make the changes in real time.
Okay, sure.
So yeah, the changes is
making sense.
Yeah, as you click through it, you're going to hear how the speaker sounds in your space, into your ears, and you can make some decisions, you know, based on that, you know, immediately.
And you don't have to do any ugly reaching behind the monitors and moving the position of the monitors as well. So yeah.
Exactly. Who hasn't like banged their head off a desk or a guitar or something while trying to make one of these changes? So hopefully this reduces head injuries in the studio a little bit. Yeah, so I mean, it's quite self-explanatory, you know, these changes. Overall, we can change the voicing of all speakers in the system. Use it with the switch here, pure to UNR. So we'll see that reflected here as I select UNR and pure. And as discussed earlier, the voicings are really, really useful tools. Pure is super flat. You know, as measured in an anechoic chamber. UNR has a little bit more character. It's that Adam audio heritage and sound. And so yeah, having the two voicings is a really nice feature for the A series. For me personally, I like to use UNR when I'm in the kind of a production or a creative process. Everything just sounds really cool, sounds really, really good to my ears. And then when it's time to get into, you know, mixing down the audio.
Back to reality.
Exactly. Let's make sure that I'm on a totally level playing field. And yeah, for me, it's enjoyable to be able to kind of cue these two sounds, and to hear it in real time as well is really, really nice.
Yeah, that's great.
Also, the input is selectable here on the backplate, and of course you can do that for individual speakers, and you can adjust the delay time accordingly, which of course is really important for multi-channel applications where you want all of the sound delivered to your ears at the same time. Ideally, it's helpful, and of course you can mute each speaker then. The muting is then is signified by the little flashing LED then as well. So we know that that's out of the system. And again, for multi-channel systems, if you want to find out if there's a strange sound coming from somewhere, it's nice to have this level of control. So yeah, that's the backplate or adaptation mode in a nutshell. As I said, it's a direct representation of what you see in the backplate and offers like real-time remote control.
Nice one. I mean, that's great that you can use, A-Control to basically control the parameters which you have on the back of the monitor. But to be honest, what I really want to do is have a listen between those two voicings. Do you think we could flip that speaker around and have a little listen?
I think we can. Let's do it.
Cool.
Okay, so we have the song opened here that you're familiar with. it's playing away in the background, and we can use that to differentiate between the two voicings. Now this system, or this setup I should say, the speakers are very close together, which wouldn't be common for a pair of A8Hs for such powerful speakers. But for today, it's all good, and you'll definitely be able to hear, well, at least I hope you'll be able to hear the differences quite clearly between these two voicings. So yeah, let me turn up the volume a little bit
Crank it up.
and toggle between the two. So if I could turn the tables and ask you a question, well, what's your kind of first impression, or how does it sound to you?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely tell the difference switching between the two voicings. You know, you have the pure and the other voicings.
UNR.
UNR, and you know, the UNR is just a little bit more full. You know, just like there's definitely a boost in the lower end for sure. It's definitely more stark when you flip from the UNR back to the pure, because you've got all those frequencies that you're really enjoying, and it's very lush to listen to, and you flip back to that, you know, to a much more flat frequency response, and you can really hear it. But I guess that's great if you know any sort of workflow. I mean, like you said before, you can get really inspired working in UNR with that extra sort of like hi-fi almost, you know, boost in the speakers. But obviously, you know, when it comes to mixing, making sure everything's correct, going back to pure, it's definitely a great workflow to have and a great tool to have right at your fingertips for sure.
Cool, glad you dig.
Right, so Mark, we've had a listen to the two different voicings. You know, I got to hear that stark contrast, which was really great. And we've had a look at A-Control and how that can control the back panel of the monitors. But I want to know, can we go any further?
Indeed we can, Theo. Yeah, there's plenty more to explore with, with A-Control. I'll move over to advanced mode now. And this mode is really put together with more advanced users in mind. You know, so someone who's working in a space that's maybe already treated. And I mean, unless you're working in an anechoic chamber, you're going to have problems in your space.
I guess it's the person that treats the room that knows exactly what specific frequency is probably going to be, you know,
exactly
that niggling little frequency that they may need to touch up later on.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, if you know already, or more likely you're going to carry out some sort of measurement with something like Room EQ Wizard, you'll see what frequencies you need to address. So with advanced mode, you have 6 bands of parametric EQ. You can enable and disable the bands as you see fit, and you can dial in your specific frequencies, gain and Q values then within advanced mode to really hone in on those problems and to correct them in your space. Get your speaker sounding golden.
So Mark, I'm sure many people watching the video have noticed that this Sonarworks microphone has been looming in the background. Now we just took a little step out of the studio and you've been up to something. What is it you've been up to?
I have indeed. Well, in a nutshell, I've been measuring the space with this measurement microphone from Sonarworks, creating a calibration profile in Sound ID reference, and then uploading it to the A8H's DSP so we can hear calibrated audio in our space. And yeah, maybe I can give you a quick overview of how we do that and how we get the profile onto the loudspeaker's DSP.
Cool.
So the first step is to use the measurement application from Sound ID reference. This is a phenomenal application. It will guide you through the whole process. Just follow the on-screen instructions. It takes about 20-25 minutes, and really the animations and the guidance make it super, super easy. So from anyone who's never measured a space before, I highly recommend checking it out.
Cool.
So with the measurement complete, we can now move into Sound ID reference, where we can open up that calibration profile that was, you know, picked up by the microphone over a series of, I think, around 20 measurements, or 30 measurements actually, to be more precise. Now, Sound ID reference is a paid piece of software from Sonarworks. It's well worth the money, especially for someone who's not familiar with measuring spaces. It really is great. However, we do have a 60-day trial exclusive for Adam Audio customers that offers the full functionality of Sound ID reference, including the ability to export the profile to an Adam file that can be read by the loudspeakers. So you do get the full functionality of the calibration. So to access it, all you need to do is register your A-series monitors, then we'll email you out your license code. Then you just follow the instructions. Super simple. You download Sound ID reference, the measurement application, and get going.
Which is great, because it means you can pick up your new monitors, you put them in the space, you maybe do a little bit of room treatment, and then you get this free 60-day trial so you can measure the space, calibrate it correctly, and your monitors are going to sound
Yes, they are indeed. They are indeed. So yeah, I have carried out the measurement already, and we can see the results here on screen. So the purple line shows what it was looking like before. The green shows the calibration, and then we see the simulation of both in parallel. We see that ultra flat response. Now, maybe some of your audience are wondering that there is a lot of activity going on here, somewhere between 100 and 500 hertz. Well, we see the loudspeakers are pushed very close together. That would not be normal in a studio. And typically, we always recommend treating the problem at the source. So set your loudspeakers up properly before you get going, before you carry out any calibration. So, that means, typically forming an equilateral triangle, respecting the SPL or the potential of each speaker, certainly. And ensuring your room is treated as best you can.
Yeah, just to mention, we are in our live room, which isn't a treated space. There's a lot of reflections. We have a lot of wood on the wall. It's a pretty odd shaped room. So, we're not in a space which has been, treated specifically for mixing and using monitors correctly.
Cool. So typically with Sound ID reference, the application should be running in the background in order to continue to benefit from the calibrated audio. As we see here, the calibration is enabled, and any audio that we hear will be calibrated. Now, having the application run in the background is not always ideal. If you're moving between DAWs or different audio sources, you may inadvertently hear calibrated and uncalibrated audio. You might start second guessing your decisions. You'll also be contributing towards additional processing power.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there's some latency in the application as well. So we're very happy to have partnered with Sonarworks in order to allow the calibration to run on the loudspeaker's DSP. So to do that, we first need to take the calibration file from Sound ID reference and store it on our desktop in order to fetch it then for using A control and push it then to the loudspeaker's DSP platform.
Okay.
So yeah, let's go and do that. It sounds complicated, but I promise you it's super easy. So all we need to do is simply select the A8H profile here at Gear4music. We head to export. Now we see there's the Atom Audio A series option, which we select. We stick with our no boost recommendation output. And then we save it as we wish. So we just need to export and off it goes. Cool, so that's the file exported successfully. It's now living on my desktop. We've disabled now the calibration because we don't want to double calibrate our speakers. But to be honest, we can just go ahead and now close Sound ID reference entirely. The next and final step is to simply load Sound ID preset here using A control. And then we see the file here, the A8H at Gear4music. All we need to do now is select the left channel for the left channel and the right channel for the right channel. And there you have it. We now have the calibrated file living on the loudspeaker's DSP. Sound ID reference has been totally shut down. And we will now hear calibrated audio through the loudspeaker. The calibration is happening on the loudspeaker's DSP as opposed to within the VST of Sonarworks. And it gets even better, if you can believe it. We can now shut down A control completely if we wish, remove the networked speakers, as in the cabling, and the calibration will remain active on the loudspeaker's DSP until we replace it with something else. If we move our speakers around, therefore the calibration is no longer relevant, we can simply move back to the default voicings, pure and UNR, as we described. So, I mean, it's a set and forget kind of philosophy. You calibrate your speakers. Most people leave their speakers, in a stationary position. So yeah, the calibration can live on the loudspeaker's DSP, and you can be confident then in your decisions, in your mixing, knowing you're always listening to calibrated audio, and yeah, no matter what your source is. So it also means you don't even need to use your laptop anymore. If you have a fully hardware setup, you can listen to calibrated audio, direct from your mixer going into your speakers. The calibration will happen on the loudspeaker's DSP, and yeah, we'll sound good to your ears.
That's amazing. So we've calibrated those speakers to this room. Now, what I'm really excited to do is to hear them, to A/B them against, without the calibration at all, maybe on the pure setting, and then we'll listen to the calibrated speakers that has been calibrated specifically for this room.
Let's do it. So right now we're listening to the audio in the adaptation mode. So in other words, that is pure, in pure mode, without any further tweaks to the backplate. So it's as flat as pure can sound in this room without any further calibration. And yeah, I'll turn it up a little bit, and then we can toggle between the Sound ID reference mode and then back to pure again. And
let's do it.
Give you an idea.
From the beginning.
So cool. What do you think?
Wow, I mean, it's crazy the difference, especially in the bass. You know, like in our pure frequency response, the bass is so much more present, and it's like filling up way more of the mix. Whereas, you know, with the calibration, the bass drops down a little bit, and we're able to pick out, you know, the presence of, you know, different frequencies, particularly the snare. You know, being able to hear a little bit more of what's going on there as well. It's crazy the difference, actually.
Yeah. It's cool. All right. Now we can go ahead and completely disconnect our speakers from the network if we wish as well, and just shut down A control. The calibration will remain on the loudspeakers DSP in the slot labeled EXT on the back that we looked at earlier. And yeah, then you can kind of set and forget. You can just enjoy calibrated audio. You can use multiple input sources as well, so you don't need your laptop at all. The calibration is happening on the loudspeakers DSP, so if you're using an all hardware setup, for example, or if you're using them as hi-fi speakers, you will be listening to fully calibrated audio in your space. But of course, don't forget, if you move your speakers again, you need to calibrate them again. But if you do move them and don't have time to calibrate them and want to get to work, just use the backplate switch to go back to one of your default voicings, so to pure and to UNR. Pure will sound, you know, as flat as it possibly can in the room. And of course, if you're in a treated space and your speakers are set up correctly, you hopefully won't have to do much calibration in the first place.
Wow, I mean that's great. You know, with the calibration, A control, and all the new features, like with the DSP and the speakers, and everything that's new with the A series, I think we can definitely say that the new iteration of the A series is definitely not a Mark II. It's definitely something new, for sure.
Cool. Thanks very much for having me, Theo.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming in, Mark. And if you guys have enjoyed this video, if you want to find out more about the A series, there's definitely 100% a link in the description of this video. Please leave us a comment down below if you have any further questions. We're more than happy to answer them. As always, please don't forget to give us a cheeky like and subscribe, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Thanks.